I adore Bill Malone. He told me a great story once. He said that when he was a young lad, he was crazy about the Beatles, and the Beatles were on a tour of America. And so his parents bought him a ticket to the show, and they dropped him off in front of the stadium. And he was all decked out in his Beatle sort of suit, and his hair was a little longer. And he decided that he would, you know, kind of go around to the stage door. And when he got around to the stage door, the guy says, "Oh, you're here, you're late. Go on in." Because they thought that he was part of the local warm-up band. So Bill Malone's in the green room, and all of a sudden they realized, hey, wait a minute. And just as they started to take him away, the Beatles walked through. So here he is with, like, you know, a cop, you know, and he's pulling him away. And John Lennon says to him, "What did they get you for?"
Well, I first met Bill Malone, actually, by mail, you might say. Paul Blaisdell and I had a magazine at the time in around 62 or something like that called Fantastic Monsters of the Films. And we had a thing called the Devil's Workshop, where Paul, since he did all the monsters like She-Creature and Conquered the World, it would tell how to build a creature, you know, from It Terror from Beyond Space, something like that. And then all of a sudden we got a letter one day from this like 13 or 14-year-old kid in Michigan, Bill Malone, saying, "I've been making my own masks. I did my own face cast and all that." And we were so impressed with him. Paul wrote back and said, "Hey, can you send us pictures of one of the things you're doing?" And he did. And I know it inspired a lot of other kids to say, hey, we can do this too. But I didn't officially meet him until the 70s. He had moved out to California, and he had made his reproduction of Robbie the Robot. And I thought, wait a minute, nobody can make a reproduction of Robbie the Robot, you know. And then when I saw Robbie and saw what he could do, oh my God, I couldn't even believe it. I mean, there's no books on how to build a Robbie. There's no classes you can take on how to build a Robbie. He didn't talk to the people at that time that did it. He figured it all out himself. And of course, now he owns the original Robbie the Robot now, which was his holy grail. He's a multi-talented guy. Not only can he direct, can he write and stuff like that, but he's really good at sculpting. He was at Don Post Studios for many years, the head of their sculpting department, and did some incredible masks and stuff. He went over and just took some of his samples over. And Don Jr. saw him and said, "Wow, you're good, man, and we need a good sculptor." It was just like an instant friendship right then and there, you know. Well, Kathy and I started kind of doing Halloween displays, presentations, what do you want to call it, back in the 60s. And just because I loved Halloween when I was a kid. I would just wear some sort of weird Mr. Hyde mask or something, and Kathy would open the door real quiet, and I'd that thing, and then give them their candy and stuff. And all the kids started catching on. So we kept doing Halloween shows, and then finally, I knew other guys like Dennis Murin and Rick Baker, Tom Sherman, and they all said, "Geez, we'd like to help you on these things and just do stuff." So it kind of branched out. And then when it came time to, we did them, mainly we did them on movie themes if we could. And all of a sudden I thought, gee, wow, see, Robbie, we'll have Robbie, maybe Forbidden Planet. So we talked to Bill about it, and he said, "Oh yeah, man, I'd love to do that," you know. And so that was the first Halloween show he worked on. But I think his crowning achievement was when we did The Creature in '82. He said, "I will build a complete creature suit if you want to do the show." And that's all it took. He played the creature for the first night. And after that, he said, "Okay, I've had my fun with it. We'll put somebody else in the suit." And me wearing gorillas and stuff, I know what that feels like. So, you know, if you're not used to wearing suits, it can be pretty taxing. But he did, he made the show. He did a beautiful job on this suit, I'm telling you. I mean, well, Ben Chapman was over one time, thought it was one of his suits. He didn't start making films until later, and it was called The Night Turkey. It was a takeoff in The Night Stalker when that was done, and Rick Baker made him this weird turkey head thing, and it's about this guy, instead of a vampire thing, he's a turkey.
To say something. Corn Shack, you keep it short. I was with the police last night, and I saw some things you just can't explain away. Broderick's own men shot at Rabinowitz, some at point-blank range. How come it didn't even slow him down? Stay out of here!
I played the Simon Oakland character. That was the guy, the newspaper guy, and Bob Short played the Kolchak character. And we're banding back and forth and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it's truly funny. So I mean, he had the spark even then. It was there. It's just always been there. It just needed to be nurtured and stuff. And he did it himself. I know his friends have helped because we've all told him how good he is. Because at first he didn't have much confidence in himself when he first started. The first film he actually did, I believe, was Scared to Death.
Her left leg was ripped from her body, and her hair was pulled back so hard that it broke her neck.
Creature was sort of a mutant thing, a little like Alien. He was very inspired by Alien. I mean, as a lot of us were.
We did a terrible mistake of bringing aboard one of those broken canisters with a specimen in it.
Well, when Bill first told me he was going to remake House on Haunted Hill, I kind of thought, who's they going to get for price, you know? But he said, well, it's going to be a little different.
I hadn't really known him until out of the blue, I got offered an episode of a short-lived little series for HBO or Showtime called Perversions of Science. It was kind of by the same people that brought us Tales from the Crypt. I did 2 projects with them, and in both of them there's a red ball that bounces mysteriously. There's something spooky about kind of a ball bouncing in a place where it shouldn't be.
My wife, Mary Seward, a script supervisor, was working with him on the film, on House on Haunted Hill. When the film was over, he needed a few more visual effect shots that were scary, spooky, weird, creepy. And he invited me for 2-3 days to just shoot stuff like that. Gruesome stuff like torture, naked women being tortured, possibly one of Malone's favorite subjects. I have a camera that has a hand crank, so we used the camera with a hand crank, so the speed of the camera would be very uneven. And then we took an electrical drill and made a big old cardboard shutter that was going in front of the lens. And so just stuff like that, just inventive, weird things that you don't see very often, and Bill loved all that.
There's a thing in House on Haunted Hill where he took the camera and he just sped it up very fast. And while he did that, I walked very slowly. Like what I tried to do was sort of imitate those NFL films, you know? They came to the game. And when you combine those, that high speed with the slow, you're not quite sure what the hell is going on. So you know, Bill really loves to play around the fringes with that kind of thing.
And when I watched Fair-Haired Child, I could see that he did some of those effects as well. And I think that's in his bag of tricks. And it's always weird because you don't really know how it's done when you see it. I think William Malone enjoys creating effects as much as possible on the set, on camera, right then and there. And that means that you have to do a little bit more homework. But I think if you use good old-fashioned film tricks and create spooky, scary images that people will remember, I think that impresses him more than going into post-production and then futzing around and creating computer graphic images.
The only thing I was kind of amazed at, but not surprised, because today this is what the market demands. He had a lot of blood and gore in the film. But still, Bill did it tastefully. It wasn't really thrown at you like some of what I call the slasher films do. You know, it still had some art to it, but it was kind of shocking for me. But I think he felt he just kind of had to do that.
Bill Malone said, "You're gonna shoot my next movie." And I'm thinking, we're in Hollywood, we'll see if you remember me. And sure enough, one day Bill Malone calls and says, "Hey, I'm in Luxembourg. Here in Europe, I'm prepping a movie, I want you to shoot it." 6 weeks later, I was in Luxembourg starting prep on Fear.com. I had more time prepping with Bill Malone and discovered how far he goes into details in regards to locations, wardrobe, makeup. For example, some of the very spooky, I think, makeup in the female lead character didn't pop up overnight.
Well, we were invited to a screening of Fear.com, not having any idea what it was.
Fear.com tells about an evil person who uses the internet to broadcast him torturing women, basically.
And that film shocked me, I gotta say. He really went off the wall in that one. That was a brutal film, a very brutal film. But at the same time, artistic.
The intent of the whole movie is more that of a nightmare. You know, you're waking up, you're sweaty, you might be slimy, and you don't know what happened.
He did some of the torture type stuff, that this guy was really a maniac and really liked to torture the people. And this was a little bit more twisted, which normally Bill hasn't done.
What I remember most is that awful distorted mask of that female character who's grown up in that twilight zone of the internet. I think some people who are very much into the internet and what it can be, and also think further into the future, I think they enjoyed it very much because it pushed the envelope a little bit story-wise. Those people who are not so much into technology, they had trouble following it a little bit, and hopefully they enjoyed the spooky images.
I was just sitting at home and the phone rang, and my manager said, "Oh, we got this offer for you to go to Canada and do this show." I said, "Well, do I have to be naked?" She said, "No." I said, "Take it."
It was I originally called it Johnny Boy, and it was going to be a short that I was going to direct. And it was one of those stories which I thought of, and I really sort of had the basic shape of, but at the same time, it's like, well, this has got to be longer than 20 minutes, and I can't afford to shoot it short. So it kind of stayed in the back of my mind, and then I got approached about Masters of Horror, and I was like, Bill was one of these guys. The first meeting that I sat down with him, I knew he got it, and we had a real good, I think, give and take, because we were able to just throw ideas at each other, and we were perfectly willing to throw bad ideas at each other and shoot one another. We could each shoot our each other's bad ideas down without being taken, without taking it personally. I also found him to have sort of a sick sense of things, which I do too. So we bonded immediately about that. So
He's got that mood, that feeling, that face, these eyes, these very dark eyes, and he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. That's for sure. That's really what you want from a director, is someone who has the passion, the vision, and the feel. That's his tone, or his texture or whatever. He had this a notebook, and it had photographs and tear sheets from magazines and pictures, and then that munch picture of the Scream was in there.
Well, I have to give him credit on that, because I do not, in the script, that did not describe the creature. He called me up really excited. It's like, "I've got these sketches. I want to show it to you. Can I email it?" And it's like, "Yeah, sure." And of course, he emailed it, and my computer was very slow, and I wish somebody was filming my face at the time, because I'm watching this thing take shape, and I'm like, "Ah!" And I'm like, and it's 2 in the morning, and I'm like, and I have to wake up my wife. "You gotta see this. This is so great. It's so sick, And so you go to bed. I hate that stuff. What was captured there was not just an icky, scary monster. Again, working from the Munch painting, it's this, the expression in the screamer's face is one of just almost depthless despair. It just got it right there, and he sketched himself. I mean, he's a good artist.
You gotta get her out of there.
No, Anton. If you let her out, you'll kill our son again.
When I had originally conceived it as the short, I wasn't a parent, you know, I had no kids. And what had since happened was I had gotten married. I have 2 children now. And so suddenly the parent story became a lot more, came into much more clear focus to me, because the worst thing you can imagine is losing a child. And as screwed up as these 2 people get, you know, I look back and I say, well, would I have done the same? And, you know, the answer is, well, who knows? But, you know, I would certainly be tempted.
I was freaked out by how scary, monster, witchy, wicked I looked. You know, I guess, you know, part of that's lighting, part of that's I was about 5 pounds thinner. When I saw it, I was like, oh, you're too skinny. You need to gain a little weight. I don't like to be scared, and the thing is, you know, being a filmmaker, I know it's just a movie. So you just put in your mind the scariest thing that you think would come to eat you or rip your face off or whatever, you know. Okay, so we're on this stage, like here, and there's just a pane, glass panes, and I really bruised my cheekbone because I had to do it like 5 times. So I'm running, and the camera's here, and I smashed my face against like the thing because the monster's coming to get me. They got that, right? And so I have big eyes, so it's like you could see this big blue eyeball, right? Then they took a piece of a fillet of chicken breast, and then they took and made an eyeball like my eyeball, and they put my eyeball in the chicken breast, and then they put blood all over it, and then they would take it, and then they just went against the glass. So it's like, I'm running, they cut it together, and it's like, that was like Bill's favorite part, you know, like that kind of stuff. He likes the scary, creepy stuff.
I think William Malone's contributions to the horror genre are creating images that you just don't forget very easily. Like Fair-Haired Child, you know, that creepy creature with the branches growing out of his head that he designed. You know, that's not something he cut out of a book and said, hey, let's use one of those.
I think he's trying to just look at all angles of films. Yeah, I think he wants to make every type of film. I mean, I'm sure he could make an incredible comedy if he wanted to.
This business is just flat out, you know, not fair. And Bill's got a gift that's never really been given its full freedom. I remember talking with him once, and he said, you know, Jeff, you can do 2, 3 projects in a year. I don't have really all that many movies that I can do in my life, because to direct a film is a ball-breaking, tenacious, disturbingly frustrating, long road between conception and fruition. And it certainly doesn't stop when it's a wrap. But Bill always seems to have a serenity about him, and he's just a really kind and genuine man, and you know, I'm pleased that he's my friend.
Cut. That was great.